We're going to get into a little bit of design. We broke it down to 5 steps. We don't want to overcomplicate a zoning system design, but we want to give you the places to be conscientious of. We want to give you the places where you get in trouble, so give you some good design practices. And then I will try and do my best at the end of the 5 steps to kind of give you a breakdown of using all 5. It was one of the last jobs I did before coming to work here, and basically apply the 5 rules. The first one, which we keep harping on, which is get your customers' input. You know, nobody knows that house better than them. Are they an empty nester, or what are their daytime zones, nighttime zones? Typically, if you just identify how they move around the house throughout the day, that can help you identify zones. You also want to make sure you talk to them, you know, different things. You do any entertaining? What about special comfort requirements? In-law suite, a workout room, you know, just talk to them. Where are you over conditioning, under conditioning? You know, common pain points are always the bedrooms on the 2nd floor, rooms with more than one outside wall. The areas of the house that only have one outside wall always seem to be pretty decent, but some of the bedrooms and other areas that have 2 or 3 outside walls, they're completely different than the rest of the house, and always a challenge and thusly, you know, a good need for zoning. Second rule, load calculation. Our company installed the heating air conditioning system here 3 to 5 years ago. I know it's properly sized, I know it's properly tuned up, I know it's working exactly like it should. And you know, there doesn't seem to be any problems with the ductwork. If you have enough kind of background history on the job and you're pretty confident everything's up to snuff, it's just physics. The 2nd floor has more load on it. Hot air rises, thermostats on the 1st floor. 1st floor is comfortable, 2nd floor is not. Feel free to go ahead and apply zoning to that without probably taking much additional steps in order to do that process. If this customer is new to you, and you get to talking to them and it's like, yeah, we have pain points all over the house, and you don't know anything about the HVAC equipment, if you don't know anything about the duct system, it would be in your best interest to at least put your eyes on all of that, kind of assess it, make sure that it seems to be sized properly for the house, that the ductwork seems to be adequate. You know, you can jump to load calculations if you really are unsure and you just want to make sure, but at least do the assessment. At least make sure everything looks to be in order. And then the 3rd rule, put the thermostats in the zones that they're going to control. Where do you think the most common place for a 2nd floor thermostat is? Hallway. Is the hallway the same temperature as the bedroom above an unconditioned garage, 3 outside walls, tons of windows? Does the hall match that room? You know, I think the thinking is you put the thermostat in the hallway, and then it's easy for anybody on the 2nd floor to, like, if I have guests and they're too warm, too cold, they could even come out and turn the thermostat up or down. But if the thermostat's nice and comfortable in the hallway while you're uncomfortable in your 3 outside wall bedroom, that's going to be an unhappy customer, right? Now, you could put the thermostat in the hallway and put remote sensors on it and do 3 rooms and average them. That would work. But it has to know what the temperature in the rooms is, not what the temperature in the hallway is. Next rule is, you know, every primary suite on the 2nd floor should have a thermostat in it. Even if it's only going to have one thermostat on the 2nd floor, it should be in their bedroom. They're the ones paying for the job. If every night they go to bed, it is exactly at the temperature they like to sleep at, they're going to love their investment. So keep that in mind. If every primary suite should have its own thermostat, even if it's only going to be this, you know, the only thermostat on the 2nd floor. And then the 5th rule is really just about when you're creating your zones, about not creating little tiny micro zones. And what I mean by that is if you have a customer with a 4 or 5 ton system and they say, hey, I'd like my little office to have its own thermostat. And you look and there's only one 6-inch run for that office, These are just general guidelines. If you have an old system PSC blower, you can easily get down to a third of the ductwork and not have to worry about a problematic job. Some job is going to be hard on the equipment, have a lot of air noise, require a lot of bypass, anything like that. You can go smaller than that. It just might mean that you need to add a bypass to control a little bit of the static pressure. But if you start getting down to like a couple of runs, 1 or 2 runs, that's probably going to be a problem job for you. It's just bad design practice to make zones that small. If you have variable speed ECM and you use our HeatPumPro control, which has zone weighting, which we'll cover later today, basically what our panel is doing is it's locking the equipment in the low stage. You have to have multi-stage equipment, obviously. But if you have multi-stage equipment and you can use our Pro panel, what the system can do is when a small zone is calling by itself, we lock that system in the low stage. We never allow it to go to full capacity. If you have a large zone call or you have multiple small zones calling at the same time, now we can allow it to stage up to full capacity. But if we get down to just like one little zone calling again by itself, now we need to lock it back down into first stage so that it doesn't ever run at full capacity. If you have that type of system, you get down to about 25% of the ductwork and not have any problems. So those are just general design guidelines. So this is that HeatPumPro panel. On the output of the panel, we actually have 2 sets of Y1, Y2 outputs. We have a Y1, Y2 air handler for staging the amount of airflow that the system is going to receive. Then we have a separate Y1, Y2 for your condensing unit, which is going to stage your heat pump or air conditioning system based on how much BTU capacity you need. The Y1, Y2 air handler is the one that we can, when you only have that one small zone calling, we can lock the airflow into just a Y1, never let it go to a Y2 airflow so that we don't overstack and create issues with the system. Some small zone alternatives. So say a customer did want to have one 6-inch run to be a zone. And you said, man, that's not good practice. I don't want to do that. It's going to be hard on your system. It's going to create air noise, probably some issues. You could consider some wild runs, a couple of runs that don't get dampers. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. Another would be the alone zone board. There's a add-on board that can go in a panel, and these can be added in the field, or they can be factory installed if you need them ahead of time. But this would be a zone that would be added to one of our control panels that literally just has a thermostat and dampers. It cannot turn on the equipment. It just piggybacks off of another zone when it's running for heating or cooling, and you just basically get a thermostat and damper control. If this zone happened to call for cooling and the rest of the house, no other zone was running and cooling, nothing would happen other than the damper would open and be ready for cooling. That's a small zone alternative as well. If you do have to go smaller than the 33% PSC blower or 25% on ECM, you can use a bypass. It's just important that you properly size that. Now, tying the 5 rules together, one of the last jobs that I installed or sold wasn't far from here. It was just outside of Chagrin Falls. The whole front of the house was almost all glass. And there was, for all intents and purposes, there was almost like a little tropical rainforest that the guy had inside this front glass facade. I got to the door and I was met by the customer, asked the customer, right, are you comfortable where your comfort issues at? That opened up a can of beans because the customer's like, this is it. This is the worst part of our house. Like, we will walk around this area during the winter to avoid it because it's cold, drafty, the floors are cold, it's just not comfortable. During the summer, we'll walk around and avoid this area because it's just warm and clammy and uncomfortable, and it's just completely different than the rest of the house. Like, okay, duly noted. Front area of the house is terrible. Walk me through the rest of the house, and then we get to almost the end of the walkthrough, and she says, and here's my husband's office. And my husband said, because he goes in here and he works all the time. He likes it cold in the summer. And he says if he doesn't get a thermostat in here, like he doesn't want the zoning system. The only way I'm making this big investment is I need a thermostat for my office. I'm thinking to myself, after looking at the equipment and everything else, there's only one supply vent in here. It's not a big office. Probably going to be bad to turn on the system with only this vent open in his office. Trying to figure out how can I tackle this. I didn't think our alone zone board was going to be a good solution, because he was going to what? He was going to walk over to the thermostat, set it to cooling, and if it's not running anywhere else in the house, he's still going to be uncomfortable in his office. I went back to the first thing that the customer told me. I have this whole glass facade in the front of the house that is always uncomfortable. And I told the customer, let's start out by just making the runs in this front foyer wild runs. They won't get dampers. And I don't remember what the vent sizes were. I remember there were 4 of them. I don't remember if it was 4 7s or 4 8s. I know it wasn't 4 6s. But there were 4 supply vents in this front foyer area. I decided I'm not going to damper them. Anytime the air conditioning ran in the second floor, front foyer got cooling. Anytime it ran in the main living area on the first floor, the front foyer got cooling. So anytime any zone ran, this front foyer is getting blasted with cooling, blasted with cooling. But now I was able to make the one run in the office an actual zone, because it wasn't one 6-inch run in his office. It was a 6-inch run and 4 7s or whatever they were. Now my zone wasn't as small because I had these wild runs. And every time his office called, front foyer got some more cooling. And then the opposite effect in the winter. Anytime the heat called anywhere in the house, the front got heat. So that's an idea, give you kind of like a way to tie in those rules and apply them. The alone zone edition is great. You just have to understand, you need other areas to be calling frequently enough to make this work. And then when it goes to overshooting temperature, then this thermostat can satisfy, close the damper, and the rest of the house can go about its business without over conditioning that area. But if I made this room an alone zone, one of these smart zone boards, and this thermostat called, and nothing was happening with the rest of the zoning system, we would all sit here and, sweat or freeze or whatever the case is, because this cannot turn on the equipment. So, some different applications there. How do you know you're right? Your customer's comfortable. I mean, that's pretty much it right there. The one thing that I liked about zoning, I think more than anything else that I installed, was the immediate effect and immediate payback and recognition from the customer. You could sell the highest efficiency furnace and heat pump or air conditioning system, and then that customer is under the impression after you leave, somehow the utility company is going to be paying them to run their heat and their air conditioning. This thing's so efficient. But then they end up still receiving a bill. And then it's less, but it's not like, I thought I was only going to be paying like $10 a month for my electric or something. There's this conception that they have that it's so efficient, I should barely receive a bill. You put in a humidifier. Now humidifiers have gotten a lot better over the years. We have live steam humidifiers on demand and stuff, but it still takes a while. If you walk in and it's like January and it's during a cold spell and their humidity is like 10% in the house and you put in a humidifier, it's probably not going to get the humidity up for 24 hours or something. It's going to take a while to build that up. I would put in zoning. It would be 95 degrees outside and I'd pull out of the driveway at 5 o'clock and that customer's calling the answering service at 9:30 and going, I love this. Like, my bedroom's exactly at set point. I can't believe it. Like, it's almost immediate. Just however long the cycle needs to get that room to that temperature is about all that's required. I like that immediate results that customer didn't have to wait for. The equipment effectiveness is maximized. That's kind of going back again to if I can put all the air where I want it, when I need it, into the second floor bedroom where I'm staying without having to cool the whole downstairs to some inappropriate temperature, that's going to be felt in comfort in the room that we're occupying, and then it's also going to show up on the utility bill. I'm no longer freezing an entire house out. I'm only keeping one room comfortable. That saves them money. Just better comfort throughout. We're going to take the 5 rules and we're going to just kind of look at these prints and get your guys' input on how you might tackle each one of these. How many zones did you create? What rooms did you group together? Keep in mind, we want to group similar rooms with similar exposures. In your design, you never want to zone like east side of the house, first and second floor, and west side of the house, first and second floor. You want to group rooms on the same floor together. Don't create tiny little zones. Just be mindful of those things. So if we put up the first slide here. All right. How many zones did you guys come up with? 3. Pretty much everybody's at 3. What rooms did you group together?
Dining and living, and the 2 bedrooms on the left.
I mean, there's no right or wrong on these, right? But I think that would be pretty reasonable. I would think you would want these 2 bedrooms on the left to be their own zone. I mean, you're going to have people trying to sleep in there. Let's do this one. Who came up with what? How many zones? 3. You come 4? Where's your 4?
Where's my 4?
Yeah.
I have my game room and my bedroom 4 as one zone. I have my bedroom 3, bedroom 2, and foyer as a zone. I have the family dining room as another zone, my primary suite and closet, and I have the pantries and utility as a wild run.
Okay. The only thing I can say on the wild run, it may not be needed. You could get potential overconditioning. All right. How many zones? 3. Meeting room. These 2 office spaces, and then the open floor plan. All right.